The attack on Kazakhstan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs was more than a breach of security. It was a moment that sent ripples through the world's digital landscape. And like any significant event, the consequences were felt almost immediately. But what happens when a nation is caught in the web of cyber attack? What does the world do next? At first, there is confusion. In the quiet halls of the government buildings, in the secure rooms where sensitive documents are stored, people sat in shock as the attack unfolded. Kazakhstan, a nation that thought it was well protected, now faced a crisis it never anticipated. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the heart of the country's diplomacy, had been compromised. What followed was a race against time. Systems were taken offline. Emergency protocols were triggered. But even as the officials scrambled to assess the damage, the country's leaders had to face an uncomfortable truth. They were vulnerable. Now, this wasn't just a wake up call, it was a stark revelation. How could this happen? Who was behind it? And most importantly, how much had been lost? The answers were not clear, but the questions weighed heavily on everyone. The immediate concern wasn't just about the stolen data. It was about the information that could be used against them. Could adversaries now access critical diplomatic communications? Could trade secrets, sensitive agreements, and classified intelligence be exposed? These were no longer hypothetical concerns. These were real. The security breach had opened a door to a treasure trove of information. Data that could reshape alliances, shift global trade negotiations, or even incite political unrest. The fallout wasn't just digital, it was geopolitical. Kazakhstan had to scramble to reassure its allies and partners. The trust had been broken. Information was now in the hands of unknown players. What happens when a cyber attack targets a country with global connections? Well, the ramifications echo far beyond borders. Kazakhstan's neighbors, Russia, China, they watched closely. They understood the magnitude of the breach. So if the attackers had targeted Kazakhstan, what would stop them from turning their sights elsewhere? Russia, which had long been wary of Kazakhstan's growing ties with the West, immediately offered assistance to stabilize the situation. Now, was this genuine act of solidarity, or was it an opportunity to insert influence in a time of crisis? China, equally concerned about the stability of its Belt and Road Initiative, was quick to issue diplomatic statements. Their interests in Central Asia were too valuable to let such vulnerabilities fester. And then there was the West, the European Union, the United States, who were the major global powers who were watching from the sidelines and weighing their options. Would they stand by Kazakhstan in this time of uncertainty? Or would they use the incident as a way to further cement their influence in the region? As news of the breach spread, one thing became glaringly clear. Cybersecurity had just become a central piece of global politics. No longer was it merely a concern for businesses and governments. It was now a weapon in the hands of anyone with the resources and intent to wield it. Nations, corporations, and even hackers for hire could now use the digital world to shape the physical one, and no one was safe. The consequences of the attack were being felt across the world. Global financial markets jittered as investors weighed the implications of a state's inability to protect itself from such a breach. It was a reminder that cyber attacks were no longer isolated incidents. They were now a part of everyday geopolitical chess match. In the wake of this attack, the international community began to call for more cooperation in the realm of cybersecurity. Governments, businesses, and tech giants face the same truth. Cybersecurity had to evolve. Countries began discussing the need for new global cyber defense treaties, the creation of a digital security pact, something similar to a traditional military alliances. The attack on Kazakhstan became a catalyst for a larger conversation about cybersecurity infrastructure, digital sovereignty, and the necessity of international cooperation. Could this be the moment that spurred nations to work together to prevent future breaches? Or would it be yet another example of failed diplomacy? In Kazakhstan, officials moved quickly to restore their digital infrastructure. But as the dust began to settle, the question of how to retaliate loomed large. Would they strike back in the cyber domain? Or would they take the diplomatic route? Some voices within the country called the direct retaliation against the perpetrators. That advocated the show of strength in the digital arena. Others pushed for more cautious approach, stressing the importance of solidifying alliances and working with global cybersecurity experts to prevent further breaches. The decision wasn't just about security. It was about survival. How far would Kazakhstan go to protect its sovereignty? What would the world expect them to do? Well, in the wake of this attack, a new kind of arms race had begun. The nations across the world began investing more heavily in cybersecurity, some of them to protect themselves, others to prepare for the possibility of offensive cyber operations. The attack on Kazakhstan marked the dawn of a new era, where the lines between the war and peace were blurred by a new kind of weapon, the digital breach. And as the countries around the world scrambled to enhance their cyber defenses, a simple truth emerged. The rules of engagement have changed forever.